This girl wore the same weapon she used in the selfie she took with the friend she put 6 feet deep. This babysitter decided to rob a bank with the kids she was babysitting. And this despicable lady decided to rob a man of his motorized scooter and left him in below freezing temperatures before he succumbed to hypothermia. Who are the psychopath women committing the worst crimes? Let's find out, starting with number 6, Selfie-Incriminated. A selfie on Facebook helped solve the 2-year mystery and put Cheyenne Rose Antoine behind bars. In March 2015, Antoine, then 20, ended her friend Brittany Gargoyle's life during a drunken argument. Hours before Brittany's body was discovered on a rural road, the two had posed for a photo, unaware that the image would later reveal the weapon used in the crime. On the night of March 25, 2015, Cheyenne Rose Antoine and Brittany Gargoyle were out partying when an argument broke out between the two. Both were heavily intoxicated, and the fight escalated until Antoine got physical and used a black belt to asphyxiate Brittany, needlessly taking her life. Brittany's body was later found abandoned on a rural road with the belt lying nearby as the only clue. After the crime, Antoine tried to cover her tracks, creating false alibis and claiming she left Brittany at a party to visit her uncle, who backed up her story. However, surveillance footage and the uncle's later confession that he had lied exposed the deception. Antoine even posted concerned messages on Brittany's Facebook page asking where she was and if she had made it home safely, in an attempt to solidify that alibi. However, her lies unraveled 2 years later when she drunkenly confessed what she did to a friend who instantly reported her to police. Investigators, who then started looking into Antoine's Facebook activity, also discovered a selfie of the pair taken hours before the crime, which showed Antoine wearing the belt used to end Brittany's life. The digital evidence and confession led to her arrest and conviction. Antoine ultimately pleaded guilty in 2018 and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. She claimed she was too intoxicated to remember the incident, though evidence suggested otherwise. Her defense pointed to a troubled past, including childhood trauma and substance dependency as contributing factors. Antoine's time in custody was mired by defiance and misconduct, with multiple charges for disobedience, threats, and even going after a correctional officer. Despite this, she completed rehabilitation programs and showed some progress in managing her behavior. In 2020, Antoine was granted day parole, allowing her to leave custody during the day under strict conditions. However, after 4 months, she violated these terms by relapsing into substance use and failing to return as required, leading to her parole being revoked. She regained day parole in 2021, but her behavior remained inconsistent. Then, in March of 2023, Antoine was granted statutory release, a standard process in Canada allowing inmates to serve the final third of their sentence in the community under strict supervision. Her release was briefly suspended following a heated incident at a halfway house, but was reinstated after intervention and treatment. As of the release of this video, Antoine is completing her sentence under strict conditions, including substance use restrictions and a community treatment plan. She's in a residential treatment facility focused on addressing trauma and substance dependency. Despite progress, the Parole Board of Canada continues to classify her as high risk to reoffend. While Antoine's sentence officially ends in April 2025, there's no public information about any plans or conditions that might follow her release. Given the amount of trouble she continued to get into the entire time she was in custody, it doesn't seem like Antoine has changed for the better. She ended her friend's life for a silly reason, then acted like a defiant child instead of working on improving her life or herself as a person. Hopefully she figures it out when she's released, or she'll be right back where she started. Number 5. Dual Hobbies. Rachel Einspahr grabbed some headlines back in 2016 for being possibly the worst babysitter you could find. While babysitting a couple of kids, she drove them to a bank in Severance, Colorado, where she attempted a robbery to get some money for legal fees in another theft case she was involved in. Einspahr apparently isn't a very good role model. Einspahr handed a note to a teller through the drive-through vacuum tube, claiming that there was a man in her car threatening the children's lives if she didn't receive cash, which of of course, there wasn't. But the teller thought the threat was real and handed over $500, which seems like a bit of a modest amount for a man threatening kids' lives, doesn't it? As if the guy didn't want to seem greedy or anything, but he will go after the kids if he doesn't get $500. Anyway, after the robbery, Einspahr drove the kids to play at a nearby school, reattached her vehicle's license plates she had taken off because she's clever like that, and discarded some gloves she was wearing in a trash can. However, her clever little robbery plot quickly fell apart. Surveillance footage and eyewitness descriptions led law enforcement straight to her location, where she was arrested that same day and confessed to orchestrating the robbery alone. Her motive was to pay off a $15,000 upfront restitution for an ongoing case involving over 30 counts of embezzlement. In 2017, Einspahr was sentenced to 6 years in prison after pleading guilty to theft, forgery, and attempted robbery. She was also ordered to pay nearly $33,000 in restitution for embezzling from a former employer while working as an office manager. Prosecutors discussed her betrayal of trust, especially involving the children, as a significant factor in her sentencing. Now, years after the incident, it's likely that Rachel Einspahr has served her time and been released. From what we can tell, she has stayed out of legal trouble since then, or at least hasn't been caught in further crimes. While her actions were reckless and deeply concerning, it appears she may have moved on from her criminal past. Amusingly, when Einspahr gave the note to the teller, she said that she wanted money with no die packs or trackers, which is such a cliche bank robber thing to say, isn't it? As if the robber is going to check the money and be a total Karen about it. Excuse me, ma'am, but I specifically asked for this money without the die packs and trackers. This bag of money is full of both, so I'm going to need you to refill the bag correctly this time. And I need to speak with your manager. Number 4, the love triangle. A workplace rivalry turned dark when 26-year-old Whitney Franks allegedly tried to hire a triggerman on the dark web to take out her colleague, Ruut Ruutna. Both women were reportedly involved in an affair with their Sports Direct store manager, apparent dreamboat James Prest, who was described as having episodic relationships with the two. But the situation got totally out of control when Franks allegedly posted an online ad offering £1,000 or more to take her romantic rival out, along with posting Ruutna's personal details. An investigative journalist from the BBC found the post and told authorities, so police quickly moved Ruutna to a safe house and began their investigation. Franks was then arrested on September 10, 2020, and charged. Naturally, she denied the allegations, claiming she was only exploring whether the dark web was a scam and had no intention of following through, which is pretty fuzzy logic in our opinion, considering how far she took it. That excuse sounds something a 5-year-old would say when you catch them with their hand in the cookie jar. They weren't actually going to eat the cookies, they were just counting them to make sure they were still there. The whole ugly situation was fueled by Prest's involvement. By maintaining episodic relationships with both Franks and Ruutna and allegedly playing them off against each other, he created a very complicated atmosphere at the workplace. While he didn't face legal repercussions, his actions were clearly a driving force in a rivalry that spiraled out of control. Prosecutors revealed that Franks set up a crypto account to anonymously fund her plot. She purchased £282 worth of Bitcoin in 2020, a modest amount but significant in the context of the dark web's reliance on crypto for illicit transactions. While the sum wasn't enough to pay for a triggerman, investigators pointed to it as an early step in preparing for a potential crime, demonstrating intent. Days later, she withdrew the funds, but the timing aligned closely with her solicitation post on the dark web. Prosecutors argued that this sequence of actions, purchasing Bitcoin, making the post, and then withdrawing the funds, indicated a clear attempt to prepare for the crime. In 2022, a jury found her guilty, and Franks got hit with a robust 12-year sentence. However, in March of 2024, her sentence was halved to 6 years on appeal due to some undisclosed mitigating factors. Even though no harm was ultimately caused, Franks was still caught for her attempt with crypto, once thought to be untraceable, playing a crucial role in the investigation. To us, it seems like Mr. Prest should seriously rethink how he handles his relationships, as his careless treatment of others' emotions nearly led to tragic and entirely unnecessary consequences. Number 3. Ex-cop, ex-girlfriend. A retired police lieutenant's insane 14-hour standoff with law enforcement ended with her being dragged from an attic after allegedly chasing down her ex-boyfriend and endangering his life. Evelyn Fernandez, a former Miami-Dade officer, now faces charges for multiple firearm violations, resisting arrest, and other serious offenses. The wild ordeal began when Fernandez chased down her ex-boyfriend, David Sanchez, in her Jeep. Their relationship had apparently ended weeks earlier, with Sanchez reporting that Fernandez didn't take it well and had been acting erratically since. While the exact trigger for the chase remains unclear, what was clear is that Fernandez popped some caps at him while driving, striking his truck before fleeing the scene. She then barricaded herself inside some random stranger's home, where additional caps were allegedly popped. After 14 hours of failed negotiations, SWAT eventually stormed the house, using smoke grenades and machinery to gain access through the roof. Body camera footage showed Fernandez continuing to resist arrest as officers yanked her from the attic, yelling and screaming the whole time for all the good it did. The standoff left the home in ruins with a massive hole in the roof. But Fernandez's relationship troubles aren't anything new. Years earlier, Fernandez was accused of breaking into the home of another ex-boyfriend, causing thousands of dollars in damage. That relationship also involved bad physical confrontations. The former lieutenant's downfall has been marked by a history of erratic and bad behavior. She was fired from the police force nearly a decade prior after multiple physical confrontation allegations and is facing a litany of charges stemming from her most recent actions. As of the release of this video, Fernandez was denied bond due to the evidence against her and is currently awaiting trial. Who knows what exactly set her off that particular day, but can you imagine being the person whose house she just blasted into? No one was home at the time, but can you imagine just sitting there one day watching TV or something when some lady with a weapon comes flying in, barricades the door, and just starts popping off rounds? Or you just come home from work one day to find SWAT in your front yard and a massive hole in your roof, and they're dragging out some lady kicking and screaming. It sounds like an episode of Rick and Morty. Whatever her troubles are, we hope she gets some help. Number 2. Devious plans. A Florida woman was arrested after attempting to build a combustible device inside a Walmart in Tampa. Apparently, Emily Stallard, 37, wandered the store for over an hour, collecting items such as flammable liquids, nails, and a mason jar without purchasing them. Stallard, who had a 9-year-old child with her, was apprehended before she could ignite the device. The incident blew up when a Walmart security guard noticed Stallard's suspicious behavior and alerted an off-duty Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation officer who happened to be in the store. The pair intervened just as she attempted to test a wick for the device. Deputies for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office quickly arrived, arresting Stallard, who denied the device was hers all the way to the squad car, despite overwhelming evidence otherwise. Sheriff Chad Chronister praised the quick actions of the security personnel and off-duty officer, saying that their vigilance likely prevented a dangerous situation. He discussed the importance of reporting unusual activities to authorities, noting that one phone call can save lives. Stallard faced multiple charges, including battery. During her arrest, she had apparently spat at deputies, hence the battery charge, and was held on $8,500 bail. Following the incident, Walmart issued a statement reaffirming their commitment to customer and employee safety, which is always nice to hear how committed Walmart is to things like that. They thanked law enforcement for their swift response and pledged full cooperation in the ongoing investigation. It makes you wonder what happened to Stallard that put the idea in her head that this was a good idea. She looked like a pretty normal person, and for whatever reason, it seems like she just snapped and decided to do something stupid. We're just glad no one got hurt. There's no public record of what happened to her after the arrest, but we hope she's doing better. Number 1. Cold Truths. A woman has been sentenced to 6 years in prison for her role in the tragic passing of a disabled man after stealing his mobility scooter and leaving him in sub-zero conditions. Kimberly Ann Hawkins, 41, pleaded guilty to the demise of 63-year-old Neil Shadwick in an incident that occurred in early 2023 in the UK. Hawkins and Shadwick had arrived together at a supermarket in the early hours of the morning. According to prosecutors, they had gone to the cash machine after Hawkins had provided adult services to Shadwick, who attempted to withdraw money to pay her. When he appeared unable to access the funds, Hawkins became angry. CCTV footage revealed that Hawkins then took Shadwick's mobility scooter while he was still partially seated on it. As she rode off, Shadwick was dragged along the ground for nearly a minute, which is really long if you think about actually doing something like that, before finally falling off. Seriously, she probably dragged him about 400 feet without a second thought. Then Hawkins, who clearly lacks a conscience, left Shadwick on the ground and rode away on the scooter, abandoning the severely disabled man in freezing temperatures. Shadwick was eventually discovered unresponsive by supermarket staff hours later and was rushed to the hospital suffering from severe hypothermia, pneumonia, and lung injuries. His only words to paramedics were "robbed" and "Kim." Sadly, he passed away shortly afterwards. Hawkins, who had no fixed address, was sentenced at Gloucester Crown Court. In addition to a 6-year sentence, she received an additional 6 months for other related offenses. Shadwick's family described the devastating impact of his passing. His daughter, Victoria Bentley, expressed heartbreak over her father's suffering, explaining that Hawkins had knowingly left a vulnerable man in a life-threatening situation. Shadwick's sister, Tanya Rickards, also reflected on how the family had been planning to reunite Shadwick with his terminally ill brother, Kevin, but that opportunity was stolen from them. The heinousness of a crime like this, dragging a man on the back of his mobility scooter for nearly a minute and then knowingly leaving him to freeze, makes a 6-year sentence feel rather light, doesn't it? Hawkins made several conscious decisions in the moment, each worse than the other, and it seems that those choices might have warranted some more severe consequences than just 6 years and change. Justice may have been served, but it's hard to ignore the lingering question of whether it was enough for a life so brazenly cut short. Click to watch one of these next videos.